How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
It's a fixture that's never taken place at the Champions Trophy. It's a game that these two teams enter, perhaps not wanting to play given the kind of Champions Trophy they've had. It comes at a venue which didn't let us see any cricket 2 days ago, so we're really hoping for the rain to start relenting in Rawalpindi. Pakistan versus Bangladesh, the toss is delayed, but we build up to that game and there are lots of questions to ask of both these sides, the campaign they've had, their futures. All of that up ahead through the day. Welcome to Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricket for Match Day, where we are in the company of Wasim, Jaffer in our studios. Thank you, Wasim.
Thank you,
and
Yash.
Urooj Mumtaz joining us. Urooj, thank you as always. You witnessed a classic of an ODI last night in Lahore. We are still recovering from that. What a great result. And while this game, Pakistan-Bangladesh, might be a dead rubber on paper, these tend to be the games which oftentimes throw up great results.
Well, I think as far as Pakistan are concerned, result or no result, I think it's far beyond just these 2 points or whatever this W might hold in terms of the context and the content of the game.
All right, we'll hear from Urooj shortly, but yeah, they do tend to be. I mean, I can think of the Asia Cup a few years ago. Bangladesh were knocked out, but they beat India in what was a very thrilling game. That has to be the hope, but the first hope is that the weather gods relent.
Yeah, it doesn't look pretty good again. The last game also got rained off. The forecast isn't great. We all hope that at least they get a game. Obviously, it's a dead rubber, so there's something to play for, especially for Pakistan. I feel if at all they get to play, Pakistan to win this is a must. Otherwise, it's going to be a disastrous tournament. They're getting an ICC event after 29 years. They don't want to be winless, throughout the tournament. So let's hope, fingers crossed, even for Bangladesh. I mean, it's been a pretty terrible campaign. They have disappointed once again. So a lot to play for these two teams.
Yeah, and you do hope that we get to see a full contest because Pakistan hosting an ICC event after 29 years. They had the tournament opener in Karachi. They will now unfortunately not play in Lahore, which hosts the semi-finals. Rawalpindi is where they are today. Thoughts on just how these two teams are going to rock up for this? These are tough matches to turn up for, aren't they, Urooj?
Yeah, it's tough because you're down and out, and for Pakistan that happened very quickly. Again, I think for Pakistan there are far deeper rooted problems. It is obviously the approach which they've played one-day cricket for a very long time now, and I think we've spoken about this prior to this ICC event. We've spoken about the 2023 World Cup. Pakistan have just failed to evolve at the rate at which the modern game asks for. And time and again, we win one spectacular game and everything gets brushed under the carpet and the problems have gone unresolved for a very long time, which is actually the result of where we are today. So it'll be difficult for them to rock up, but I think just they owe something back to the fans and probably do the best they can and turn over a win to end their tournament.
Yeah, and there are potential similarities in a sense to where these two sides find themselves. Through the course of this tournament, the two games that they've played, the conversation that's often come up is that gap of skills between what Pakistan and Bangladesh are doing and what the others are doing in this format.
Yeah, I mean, Pakistan, lost both the games pretty comprehensively. Even in the first game, even against India, there was no fight shown as such, and so did Bangladesh. You expect Bangladesh to turn up in an event like that and put up a performance. So they'll be disappointed. Lack of intent, lack of probably the senior players not performing at their best for both the teams. Turning up. That's what you need. Your senior players to rock up in an ICC event, and that hasn't happened for both the teams. So they'll be disappointed. They need to dig deep. Bangladesh, they've qualified for a semi-final before, but it was a long way before 2017. But after that, it has been pretty disappointing. So they also need to dig deep, and so does Pakistan, who has been pretty disappointing for few years now.
Yeah, and as we told you at the top, there are rain interruptions. The toss has been delayed in Rawalpindi. Rain interruptions are expected through the day. can confirm that we will start losing overs only about 60 minutes from the scheduled start of play, which would mean 1 hour from now. And the latest time for a 20 overs a side contest to kick off is 7:30 p.m. local time. Now, Urooj, of course, had the pleasure of watching Afghanistan do what they did against England just some hours ago. Want to get your views in, especially considering now you consider the last 3 ICC World events. Afghanistan haven't just made a splash. They've dented so many teams. They've dented so many campaigns. That conversation around Afghanistan potentially being the second best team in Asia just gains further and further legs.
Yeah, I mean, the first game was a little disappointing for Afghanistan because we expected, I personally put them in a semi-final spot after South Africa, but, they didn't turn up against South Africa that day. But in the last game, against England, fantastic result, 38 for 3, and from there on to put on 325. Ibrahim Zadran, what a knock it was. I mean, high score in the Champions Trophy, and he's somebody who hasn't played for such a while, and to take the team out of trouble from 38 for 3 and getting 177, and then that bowling effort, because the pitch generally gets better, and they did beat England in the 50-over World Cup as well, so it's not an upset, and I feel happy for them because they have turned things around in pretty quick time, so. Pretty happy for Afghanistan. The things we expect, Bangladesh to do or probably Pakistan to do, but Afghanistan, are doing these kind of results pretty consistently.
Yeah, and they've got an English hand in this double over the Englishman, Jonathan Trott being their head coach. And he did say after last night's win that no team will take Afghanistan lightly. And when we posed the question about Afghanistan potentially being the second best team in Asia, we don't say it lightly either, because you look at the track record at the last few ICC ODI events. We're considering it from the 2023 ODI World Cup, where the dream was only denied by a one-legged masterclass by Maxwell in Mumbai. Then the T20 World Cup, where they made the semis, and now the Champions Trophy. And Urooj, I'd like you to weigh in here. Look at those numbers. Afghanistan with a favourable win-loss record, with a solid track record against full members, with 2 wins against England, a win against Australia. And when you consider the rest of Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, it almost doesn't even add up, their wins compared to Afghanistan. This is an even more remarkable story every time you look at it.
Yeah, outstanding and very true to the essence of what it is. You said it's gaining legs. I think it's far deeper rooted than just gaining legs. I think Afghanistan, without a doubt, are the second best team in the subcontinent. And it's down to a few things. It's down to obviously the skill level, which Wasim just touched on. There is definitely a gulf between the skill level that the modern game now requires from the likes of Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan compared to Afghanistan. I just feel Afghanistan has progressed far forward, and also the mindset in which they approach their cricket. They've got some really good athletes, they've got really good match winners, and it's not just Rashid Khan and company now. There's a few names that string together with Rash, which probably means the evolution of the side as well. So credit to Jonathan Trott and the boys, what they've done. And I don't think Afghanistan is just, like you said, it's not just a splash. They are true contenders at the world stage. And I'm pretty sure they're going to give Australia a run for their money tomorrow as well.
Yeah, that is what we're waiting for, because the last 2 world events, Australia versus Afghanistan, they've been matches to remember. But this evolution and their growth into an ever-growing cricketing force, it's all the more remarkable when you consider that usually we consider a domestic structure as so vital to the growth and development of newer teams. That doesn't hold true for Afghanistan. These are a bunch of players who play T20 cricket around the globe, but it's not like they have a strong infrastructure to go back to at home.
Yeah, and I think the role of Rashid and Nabi plays such an important role. They've been their role models, and I think they guide them pretty much all the time. But I think they're very fearless in the way they play. The way Fazalak Farooqi has come good, Rahmanullah Gurbaz, Ibrahim Zadran, Rahmat Shah has been damn good. Noor Ahmed has evolved along with Rashid. So the other players also, Gulbadin Naib, suddenly from the ILT20, what kind of performance that he's put in. So it's just not about Rashid and Nabi, which was the case few years back. But now I think all the other guys also contributing, and pretty rightly. I mean, if Afghanistan beat any top teams, it's not an upset anymore. They could have easily played the World Cup 50 over semi-final if they're obviously for that Maxwell knock, and had they played Bangladesh a little later in that tournament. So, things would have been pretty different for Afghanistan cricket. But the way their cricket is evolving, which is very nice to see, without the infrastructure, without the facilities, and without the coaches actually, the foreign coaches going and teaching them in Afghanistan. So they are developing on their own through playing T20 leagues and different format. But when comes the 50-over format, they're still as good, which is very nice to see.
Yeah, when you consider the 2023 ODI World Cup now, a couple of years later, it is that earlier result of Bangladesh beating Afghanistan in Dharamshala, which stands out as almost an upset. The other thing which stands out, Urooj, and yes, they've had results going their way, but there's been no change in the coach, in the structure immediately around the team for about 2.5, 3 years now. 2022 is when Jonathan Trott became Afghanistan head coach, which in itself offers a line of thought to the likes of Pakistan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, where chopping and changing seems to be pretty much every day.
Yeah, consistency. I mean, no matter what, the yardstick can only be used if there's consistency in the role. And give a couple of years at the international level is for surely for a country like Afghanistan. And we've just alluded to the fact that obviously not the domestic structure. In fact, no domestic structure whatsoever in the recent past. And the guys generally just play franchise cricket. And then you talk about franchise cricket, it's T20 version. The ODI, I feel, is far more sort of a clever, smarter format where your skills are tested, your temperament are tested. So I think Jonathan Trott has done a fantastic job. There was a clip yesterday, we met him post-show, where the obviously director had got his range of emotions during the game. Which was fantastic to see because he ebbed and flowed with the game as well. Just showed that he also wears his heart on his sleeve. And similar to what the Afghanistan boys are, they play their cricket fearless. And I think he's been in with them through the ride. So consistency matters, whether it's with the coaching staff or whether it's with the players. And it then reaps its results, isn't it? So for Pakistan, by and large, it's been almost musical chairs. And when the switch goes off, the guy goes and the next one comes in.
I want to pose this question to both of you because when we consider the teams we're talking about, Pakistan, Bangladesh at this tournament, Sri Lanka at the ODI World Cup, we've often spoken about them struggling to find a template for the format. You look at Afghanistan, so new, and you look at the 2023 ODI World Cup, 2024 T20 World Cup, and even this win against England last night, there is an element of staying true to a template. They start solid. They try not to lose wickets. They build an innings, even if it might seem like an older school version of an ODI, but they succeed with it. They maximize what they can do. In that, there's a big lesson to learn for the likes of Pakistan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka.
100%. I think there were a couple of things, in fact, in yesterday's games, which just shown through for Afghanistan and how much they've evolved as a side who are basing their cricketing decision on the strengths that they have. Very sometimes you find that line being crossed where sometimes a team forgets the strengths they have and almost play the game out with the weaknesses of the opposition. I think Afghanistan's strength, like you said, the template is get big runs on the board and then the spinners and the quicks come into the party. There was always a chance of due. And it was always going to be a if, maybe, but situation. But they played to their strengths. They got the big runs on the board. And it's a template that works for them. And it's a template that's worked for them time and again. I mean, Wasim was just naming names. I mean, Mujib is not in the tournament. So that's one spinner. Naveen ul-Haq is not in the tournament. That's one seamer, quality. So they've got a few names. In fact, 10 maybe that you can count that are very good at the world level. So maybe the one thing that they can obviously work on and build the more ODI cricket they play is obviously chasing when there are bigger totals, how to construct the innings and win those fine games or moments in the game to get over the line. But I think batting first, they've got the template down and it works absolutely brilliantly into their strength.
To those names, Urooj, I'll just add one in Ala Ghazanfar, who was the leading wicket taker after the ODI World Cup coming into the Champions Trophy. He didn't even make it here. Wasim, your thoughts on just everything Urooj just said?
Yeah, I mean, if I talk for Pakistan, I think over a period of time with Babar as a captain, I don't think they've developed players the way they should have. A lot of it was dependent on Babar and Rizwan. I was surprised that in T20 cricket, if I talk about, Babar and Rizwan were opening, Saim Ayub was batting 3, Fakhar Zaman was batting low, where those guys should have been batting up the order. So I think I'll probably, criticize Babar a little bit for not developing that team, because he had team for a long time. It was all about Babar and Rizwan, and if it comes down to 5 and 6, it was Iftikhar who's missing. I thought he was a pretty fine player. He used to bat at number 4 in first class cricket, pretty decent average, but he was slotted in as a finisher. So I think they haven't developed certain players. Fakhar Zaman, I feel, is such an important player. He's a match winner. Was slotted in to play at number 4. I don't know why. And Fakhar and Saim not being there in this 50-over format is hurting them. Because those two players could cause damage. And the template at which Babar and Rizwan, I'm not blaming just those two, but the template at the senior players play, put a lot of pressure on the youngsters. And we talk about Pakistan, really pace is their strength, but they haven't delivered as well. If you look at it, those 3 fast bowlers haven't delivered for a while, barring probably Haris Rauf, what he did in Australia. We haven't seen a performance from those fast bowlers, winning the game single-handedly. Abrar has just started playing. They've been playing with Shadab and Nawaz. So, there's a lot of chops and changes, and, they haven't had a settled unit. And, you got to blame that, they haven't produced players and backed the players, which they should have done in those 2-3 years.
All right. Yeah, there is a lot to learn for Pakistan and Bangladesh. And whichever way you slice this, it is such a remarkable story that an Afghanistan, who only 10 years back started playing ODI World Cups, are now already proving to be an example and a lesson for other teams in Asia. While we're talking about Asian teams, let's also get a quick conversation in on the reigning Asian ODI champions. India have had a good start to the Champions Trophy, but they've also made a lot of headlines. There are lots of teams talking about them. Let's start with Pakistan head coach, because the scheduling and India's refusal to travel to Pakistan for political reasons has drawn a lot of opinion. Here's what Aqib Javed had to say ahead of Pakistan's last game. They're playing only in Dubai because of a specific reason. Definitely playing in one ground, staying in one hotel is an advantage, but we didn't lose because of that. It was not like they played 10 matches before we came there, unquote. That was Aqib Javed. Next, we've heard from Nasser Hussain, former England captain, who said in a conversation, I saw a tweet the other day, Pakistan host nation, India home advantage. That sort of sums it up. Really, they are in one place, they are in one hotel, there's no travel, they're in one dressing room, they know the pitch, they picked their team for that pitch. And that's not all. You've got Australia's original captain, who's not at this tournament, but he got talking as well, Pat Cummins, saying, I think it's good that the tournament can go on, but obviously it does give them, India, a huge advantage playing on the same ground. They already look very strong, and they've got that obvious benefit of playing all their games there. Wasim, Urooj, Wasim, you already have something to say.
I've got something, I mean, just to make these guys happy.
Yeah.
The ICC should have probably played one game in Sharjah, one game in Abu Dhabi, probably allowed them to check into another hotel. Then probably this topic wouldn't have come. Yeah, I mean, if India doesn't want to go Pakistan, I mean, every country has that choice. India, obviously, for political reasons or the government's involvement, doesn't want to go there. So then what choices do we have? I mean, we want India and Pakistan to obviously play in this tournament. A tournament's not going to happen without India. So, I mean, just to, silence all these things, India should have played in Abu Dhabi, should have played in Sharjah, should have checked into another hotel here and there, just to, stop this conversation.
Urooj, I want to get you in on this as well. When you consider the range of opinions that we are seeing on this topic, how big to you is India's alleged advantage?
I mean, there's absolutely no denying that it is an advantage, and it is an advantage of is quite massive proportions. Considering they play on the same square in Dubai, they obviously had a massive headway coming into the tournament, and they don't have to move around. And they knew exactly where they were going to play, and they picked their team according to that. So there's an advantage. There's no denying that. But I said this at the start as well. I completely agree with what Wasim has just said. That's exactly what I've also been saying. Then, if it's a situation which is not in anyone's control, I mean, to begin with, I just think it's not right for the tournament for India not to be coming to Pakistan and vice versa and later on as well. I just feel that barrier needs to break. Massive for the tournament, massive for fans on both sides, and just good for the game globally itself. But then what you do is you look at mellowing down that advantage, and I completely agree with Wasim as well that it should have been the travel ban, and it should have been Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. So that's 3 different surfaces, and then it just makes the competition slightly more even. And if not, then maybe what you do allow is you allow the rest of the teams to pick 17 aside to cater for the 4 different surfaces that they might be playing in. So I think it had to be more than just fine. We'll play you in Dubai, and every other team will play in Dubai. I think there had to be more to even the contest out. So rightly so, the fingers being raised. It was always going to come up. Some teams will obviously say more because they're out of the tournament. Some will not. But it's not fair entirely in terms of it's obviously not equal playing field, is it?
This scheduling conversation will add up a lot more at the end of the tournament when everyone has had to make their travels. But if you consider the tournament at this stage, there are quite a few teams who have not had to change venues. For instance, a team which has been knocked out of the competition in England have played 2 matches in Lahore. They didn't have to travel. When you go back to the 2023 ODI World Cup, India did a lot of travelling at their own choice, but they did travel more than any other team, played every group stage game at different venues. Do you feel the scheduling argument tends to come up more in the form of an excuse when it comes up retrospectively after results have taken place?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the scheduling that we see, it does, obviously, with what has happened, India obviously has a favor. But at the end of the day, you got to play good cricket and still win. So you got to give credit to India also to be playing. India is obviously one of the title contenders, but because of the scheduling, it feels like a lot of things are in favor of India. But yeah, I mean, if you talk about 2023 World Cup, India played on all 9 different venues. Yeah. India had never played 2 back-to-back games where all the other teams also played. So we never mentioned that. Yeah. India being the host nation, we played on different ground every game and still obviously went unbeaten until the final. Yeah. So, we don't consider. Pakistan played in Hyderabad, I think, couple of games. Bangladesh played in Kolkata, vice versa. I mean, lot of other teams also played back-to-back games. But India never played. But we never mentioned that. Yeah. But eventually, you have to play good cricket to win tournaments and obviously lift the trophy.
Urooj?
Yeah, I think that's a massive point that Wasim makes. I think you need to be very careful and separate the discussion. It's a 2-pronged discussion. Obviously, there'll be teams and there'll be people who will be obviously disgruntled with results, and then the conversation come in. But you look at it from a neutral point of view. Yes, you have to put into consideration India's played very good cricket. Look at Pakistan; they've let themselves down massively, and whatever is being said now is obviously an after effect of the things. But by and large, I think there are 2 different discussions, and on a whole, the different venues could have been a thing, but a lot of the teams will obviously now bring it in as a conversation given results. So they just have to be very careful in separating the 2.
Okay. This doesn't feel like a conversation that lends itself to a rapid-fire question, but I do have one before we close the thread on this. There are enough reasons, logically, to point to the advantage of playing at one venue, but given the ground realities, given the political stuff that goes on in the background and the hardships of organizing these events for the ICC, for the organizers, is India's advantage an unfair one? Urooj?
Yeah, I would think so. It just how unfair it is obviously objective. Yours could be different to mine, and we're all entitled to our opinion. But I think it is unfair in the sense of playing on the same surface. Maybe if it could have been 2 different venues for the 3 games. Because you mentioned England earlier on. Remember, they were obviously playing their 2 games at Lahore, but the third one was already scheduled in Karachi for the Saturday. The Pakistan was obviously moving around all 3 venues and then back to Lahore for if they made the semi-final. So teams have moved around. So I think maybe adding 1 more venue into that would have made the conversation slightly more fair.
All right, fair point.
Yeah, I think I also agree. I mean, like I said before, if India would have played at Abu Dhabi, would have probably felt a bit fair to all the other teams. It's a still 2.5 hours journey, different playing conditions. You got to have picked different teams. Probably you don't know. Dubai and Abu Dhabi have different, kind of surface. So yeah, it would have been fair after that. But eventually, still, I feel you need to play good cricket to win it.
Yep. I do feel like we've not heard the last of this conversation, and it is likely to come up a few more times from a few other teams and from many other players perhaps over the remainder of this Champions Trophy. Let's bring our attention back to the game at hand. Pakistan versus Bangladesh, both playing their last game of this competition. And I want to go a bit deeper into Bangladesh because it's an intriguing story in that you don't need to go that far back in time to a period where Bangladesh were consistently punching above their weight and pulling off the results which were termed as upsets then. You think of 2015, they made it to the quarterfinals of the ODI World Cup ahead of England. 2017 Champions Trophy, they were semi-finalists. They beat New Zealand in the group stage. 2018, they made an Asia Cup final and beat Pakistan and Sri Lanka on the way to making that final. And even the 2019 World Cup, they did have wins over South Africa and West Indies. But when you thought that they would just keep kicking on, they've hit a downward spiral when you consider recent tournaments, Wasim.
Yeah, I mean, since that 2019 probably World Cup, I think they have come down. And I think even in 2019, I don't think they have a very great World Cup. I think only Shakib, played fantastically well as a team. It was a disappointing campaign. But I just feel pretty much like Pakistan, the president has been picked by the Prime Minister, pretty similar to what Pakistan does. And then again, there's a lot of chops and changes happens. The president keeps changing. I mean, we've seen that very often. The coaches have come and gone. Bangladesh is a very, emotional people. When the results doesn't go up, you get the stick very quickly. So we have seen a lot of changes in the coaches as well, similar to what we've seen in Pakistan. The chairmen have, in the last 4 years, we have seen 4 chairmen. So even if you have the best of ideas, it doesn't stay for long. So I think that's been the case with Bangladesh as well. The other problem is also that, like I've said, the senior player hasn't stood up in the big tournament, which you expect. And that has been the problem for a while. Mahmudullah, Riyad, Mushfiqur Rahim, Saqib, Tamim, even the fast bowlers or, Mehdi Hassan Miraz had a pretty poor tournament. But I just feel those are probably the reason where the consistency and stability is an issue in both Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Yeah, I want to come back to you, especially considering your knowledge of how the system works. You've spent some time there at Bangladesh grassroots. But Urooj, when we consider Bangladesh's issues over the last few years, it's not been for a lack of talent coming up. I mean, it's not too long ago, 2020, they won the Under-19 World Cup. There was a crop of players highly rated, highly regarded. Talent is not an issue. Why do you think there's a problem in terms of translating it into performing consistently at the highest level?
Yeah, I think like Wasim said, having right people in the right jobs to start with, and then consistency, but with a certain level of accountability as well, and then developing that player pool. Yes, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, there's a huge resource of talent. It's how you nourish that talent, chain it together, and obviously push it through a system. I think it's a lack of a system as well. Maybe some of the older, more experienced players have hung on for too long. Maybe not allowing spots for the younger ones to develop, and then when the younger players are thrown into the deep end, they're obviously not of that quality. Also remember, a lot of Pakistan and Bangladesh players don't get picked for franchise cricket, and now franchise cricket is a commercial commodity. And we look at Afghanistan players, we've spoken about this earlier, they play a lot of franchise cricket, and that's helped their overall game. It's just helped the mindset with which they play with, and obviously brush up on their skills. You look at the better leagues going around, how many Pakistan and Bangladesh players do you see? So that has a massive effect as well, and all of that comes down to the quality. So yes, I think it's a massive discussion with so many layers that you can peel back, and I think for Pakistan and Bangladesh, very similar problems, but talent definitely not an issue.
If we go by the words of the captain, Najmul Hossain Shanto, he has pinned the blame on the batting as far as this campaign goes. He's even said that they have taken it lightly. Is that a view you agree with?
Lightly in the sense?
He said that the batters have taken things lightly.
I don't think you can do that in an ICC event. I don't think it's a right statement. If they do, I mean, they should have been shown the door. But if you turn into a Champions Trophy or a World Cup or for any bilateral, I mean, you're representing your country. If you're taking things lightly, I think you should not be there. So, that's the cause of concern. No matter who's that, whether he's a youngster, whether he's a senior player, you can't be taking things for granted. But yeah, they have underperformed pretty consistently, and that's been an issue. So that needs to be addressed. I think you need to first of all identify the players who you think, who's going to play at international level, has the temperament to succeed, and stick with those players for a while. Because I think international level, you're not going to get the success straight away, but you need to stick with those players. And we've seen that. We've seen with Tanzir Hassan, he's been given a longer rope, but he hasn't transformed, that into performance. He's getting 25s and 30s, pretty good 25s and 30s, where, he captures your eyes, with his stroke play, but he hasn't transformed that into hundreds or a bigger score. So you need to identify the talent and temperament of the players and then stick with them. And hopefully in a year or 2 years' time, you are bound to get results.
So when you consider this particular squad, Wasim, and also any others who you may have seen as part of the setup, who are the batters they can focus on as far as a rebuild goes?
I think they've got to stick with Tanzir Hassan. He's somebody who looks, pretty talented. Tawhid Ridoy, again, is a good one. There are a few under-19 boys who they can try, because Mushfiq and Mahmudullah Riyad are not going to be there for forever. So I think they need to find out. I've been out of the system for a while, but I'm sure there's a lot of good players. Zakir Ali has shown promise in T20 and one-day format. But you need to find another 2-3 good players, who can come and do the job. And especially the youngsters, you need to pick somebody who's 20, 21. So by the time he turns 23, 24, he's a ready product.
Urooj, part of the batting conversation is also, for how long do you continue persisting with the likes of Mushfiqur Rahim and Mahmudullah? Mahmudullah still had a penchant of having an innings or two at the big events. Mushfiqur Rahim not had the greatest of returns last few big tournaments, and even between that, do Bangladesh have to take the call and just say we have to look beyond them?
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place for everything. I think what does the experience bring to the table, firstly, right? I mean, in my point of view, it brings the experience of winning the key moments, winning those big games, and getting you over the line across to the next stages of ICC massive men's events, right? So you look at you just showed that graphic of post 2019. It's not like they've been in a knockout stage. It's not like they've made the second stage. So for the past 6 years, that experience hasn't really given you the result for what they're there for. So it comes a time where, like, right, what is this experience getting us? We haven't won, and we haven't gotten those big occasions during during those ICC events. So maybe you draw the line. And with that, what you do is you rebuild, and you're probably not as disappointed losing with that experience as opposed to a new lot of players who then get into those match situations, and hopefully next time they come good. And that's your new crop of players, and then you go into the next 4-year cycle with them. So I just feel that's probably the way to do it. I think for Bangladesh, that might just be the story to call it a day for some of those experienced lads.
Go on, Wasim.
Yeah, I think Bangladesh and Pakistan, they are in that stage, I feel, if I recollect, when Eoin Morgan was the captain, and after 2015 World Cup, they decided, they're going to play a different brand of cricket and select those personnel, select those players who are going in that same direction. I think Pakistan, first of all, needs to find that captain. So is Bangladesh. If Najmul Hasan Shanto is your guy, I quite like Miraj. I think he's somebody who's pretty young, pretty dashing, and he looks like somebody who takes the game on, takes the game forward. Pakistan need to find a captain, first of all, like that, who has got same kind of mentality, find those kind of players, and then give them a longer rope and build a team, which England did under Eoin Morgan. I think these both team needs to go in that direction, and then not look for result for the first year, but hopefully they'll get the result after some time.
Right. The road ahead is going to be a tricky one for both Pakistan and Bangladesh. At the moment, we're hoping the weather ahead is not as tricky as it seems. If we were to get some action in Rawalpindi, Urooj, are you expecting any changes to the lineup? Any players who haven't got a go yet who you'd like to get a chance?
Yeah, I think the shorter the game, the more favor it, or the more advantage stacks up in Pakistan's favor. I think looking at the Pindi surface, again, batting paradise, they might just bring Osman Khan and give him a go, and he'll have a debut. He's turned out a lot of runs on that particular surface in Pindi. But I just feel maybe whoever's left on the bench really might just get a go. I'm not quite sure. It's really disappointing. It's one of those that honestly doesn't really matter. But maybe if the one change that you're looking at on that Pindi surface, the shorter the game, if we are reduced overs, maybe Usman Khan comes in for Imam al-Haq.
All right. The bigger change we're hoping for, as I see the visuals, is for the weather to start relenting in Rawalpindi. It denied us one first-time meeting at the Champions Trophy in Australia, South Africa a couple of days ago. Here we have Pakistan, Bangladesh, and you really want to see these sides playing. If action does commence, we'll be back here. Wasim, Jaffer and Urooj Mumtaz will be with us through the day. We'll have Osman, Samiuddin joining later on as well, because there is a deeper dive yet which remains to be done on Pakistan cricket and where they go from now. Urooj will have some plans which he'll share with all of us later through the day, so be sure to join us if and when that happens on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents CSPN Cricinfo Match Day.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.